Hello, namaste everyone. A very, very warm welcome to today's session on the impact investments for the LGBTQIA plus community entrepreneurs. I will refer to as the community, as we believe the community that matters the most. And I really am surprised at the response we have received. I'm very, very happy to be here. It happens to be personally a journey of over a decade for myself in the impact ecosystem, and finally bringing together entrepreneurs from the community is a dream come true. And we at Surge Impact cannot be more happy than sharing it, the whole of our work at this forum. So I'll quickly take you through what we are here to do today before I invite my panelists. One second. Yes. So this is one of the research. A lot of different research papers exist that talk about VC funding, but very few papers exist that talk about VC funding in the community. Now, one of this is from the Backstage Capital, and we see that less than 1% actually of the VC funding goes towards the community, and that there are a lot more reports that point out to saying how even in the community, that ratio of funding is divided unequally among the spectrum. Now, those of you who will be educated about the spectrum later on will understand what I'm saying. But here we are basically to talk about why this is happening, how we can overcome this through the following agenda. So I'll quickly take you through what this session is about. I will also quickly tell you about what we are doing at Surge Impact Foundation, the need for impact investments in the community, and the journey of rights to empowerment and rights and empowerment together. The case for impact investments, we will have an entrepreneur speak with us from the community. We will then have a roundtable discussion, a panel discussion between few people that have gathered here and those with experience of running enterprises and supporting enterprises in and from the community. And then we will close this panel after that talk, and we will take question answers in between. So very quickly diving it in, I would want to make it clear that this session is all about creating wealth to everybody. It's been ages that since actually the 60s, the fight has been going on when it started with the rights for gay men back in the day. But decades have passed. The fight for rights continue. The fights for justice continues, inclusivity in all corners continue. But we are here today talking about how we can look at the community beyond rights, beyond skilling, beyond providing self-employment opportunities to actually enabling them and enabling all of us to thrive in an ecosystem of entrepreneurship that can come through the community. Now, one of the reports estimate that the purchasing power of the community in India, and this is still a conservative figure, stands at more than $132 billion. Now, what happens when it's a very obvious thing when you don't provide the right access to participate in the economy and in the workforce? Naturally, all of us are affected. So I just want to make it clear that this is not an issue of us or them or someone else, or who is them, who is us, is not the point here. It's about all of us together, and that unless we look at the community from the lens of creating wealth, we are all not generating wealth enough. So in order to do this, what are we doing at Surge Impact Foundation? We have taken the mantle to run the country's first ever incubation program. Just like any incubation program should do, we have two primary objectives: to make the entrepreneurs who join our incubation investable. That is most important. But also the second one is to help the entrepreneurs who are just starting out to validate their business models and finance models. Now, when I say these things, you would say any other incubator does that. But why do we need to look at the community, especially because there are certain challenges? And we will be highlighting that. Before that, so we are a Section 8 company. And while this program we launched this year, last year actually, last year onwards, we've been talking to a lot of our peer network, a lot of the investors, CSR, and we've been working on this project. And this year we announced the program, and within 4 months, we have gathered more than 100 applications, and out of which we will be choosing and selecting about less than 10 applications to start with, because that's our bandwidth right now. And we will be piloting the theory that enabling entrepreneurship can distribute wealth across the spectrum and also achieve sustainable development goals faster and better. While we are running this program, the few basic tenets of any incubation programs added to our program at Surge Impact also is definitely business coaching. We look at entrepreneurs as individuals full of talent and are taking the maximum risk for all of us. And hence, working with them at a personal level is the most important cornerstone for us. Beyond that, we also look at enabling right mentorship. And by right mentorship, we mean the right partners across the industry, the theme areas, and experience and insights that they can bring to the entrepreneurs. We also look at people to come on board who are experts to take deep dive workshops for these entrepreneurs, one-on-one or in a group setting. There is a lot to learn from the community itself. So there is a lot of peer-to-peer learning engagements that we would be conducting. And along with this, while there is a continued alumni support, there is a financial component to the program. We are giving 7.5 lakhs in seed funding to each entrepreneur that is selected, and a fellowship amount every month for aiding their out-of-pocket expenses at a personal level. While we are doing all of this, the reason we are doing this, and we would love if hundreds of more organizations do this work and join hands together, is that we'll be collectively unlocking the wealth that has not been unlocked yet. In fact, many folks, whether in the West or the East, have seen the impact of unlocking wealth with the community, and we want to take that more formal and a notch above. Also the talent. So a lot of members from the community that we met while we were building and designing this program told us that so far the only interventions that have reached out to them is to provide them some bare minimum skilling in order to build some handicraft materials or to put up some products in an exhibition, whether sponsored by the government or in private. Now, that's also an issue, right? Why do we only look at the community from the lens of underskilled or not skilled at all? We have found in our own journey amazing entrepreneurs who are ready to take on any entrepreneur from any class and community in terms of the business acumen, in terms of the risk they are taking and the vision they have for their own companies and teams. So we are inviting all of you to come play with us in working together and unlocking this potential of wealth and talent. When we come about impact, when we talk about impact, pandemic especially has exposed a lot of issues that have come to the surface, especially in the community, because of the discrimination and the non-inclusive nature of policies and relief. Now, when you look at creating entrepreneurs from the community, you naturally make an impact across the board, which otherwise don't exist. Also,
Raj, 2 minutes
yes.
left.
Yes. Also, there is absolutely no data. We have found one of the peer organization. In fact, we have also borrowed some of the words from them, is Start Out in US. And they also had to do one of their own surveys and research to come up with information on entrepreneurship in the community. Now in India, that kind of data still does not exist. While the government numbers itself about the basic demographic data of the community is contested by the activists, we do not have entrepreneurial data about the community at all. We are also looking at creating that data, and we believe that we can achieve that in next 1 year. Now, also the story, as I narrated before, while we focus on this, there is nothing more empowering than making someone an entrepreneur and giving an enterprise for them to reach out and to be run. Now, we perceive this journey to be happening together, the journey of rights and entrepreneurship, and hence we are here to be presenting. Now, we will be quickly inviting our first speaker from our friends and family, Vaibhav Modi. Now, a very quick introduction before Vaibhav takes on the session. 1 second. Yes. So I'm always happy. It's like a personal wish list to always introduce Vaibhav. He's basically identifying himself as an entrepreneur today for us, but for me, a lot beyond that. He's an inspiring individual, a Kathak dancer, a curator of different events. If you ever come to Hyderabad, you will know what I mean by curating experiences, and Vaibhav will be talking about that business today. He is a man of many talents. He also has been working to spread around Gandhian values and has reached out to more than 150,000 people in India and abroad. And he brings a lot of art into the entire experience zone in Hyderabad and outside of Hyderabad. He has performed at some notable places in across the country and has been mentored personally by the likes of Sri Mohit Sridhar, who are stalwarts in the classical dancing in India. Now, other than leaving aside all the struggles that he has went through, we have asked him to kindly share the journey of being an entrepreneur from the community today. And without further ado, Vaibhav, all yours, and looking forward to hearing you.
And greetings to everyone who is logged in. It's an absolute pleasure to speak about the entrepreneurial journey coming from us. It's coming from the LGBTQIA background. So quickly diving in, let me set the tone. So I am a cisgendered queer person from India, a country almost where 70% of youth workforce, a country with a 70% youth workforce, read down the law which criminalized homosexuality 4 years ago. What that means is that today a queer person can have a dignified and a safe expression of life in this country. However, it's just not that. Growing up as a queer person in this country comes up with its own set of, let's say, quirks. Let me tell you a story of a queer boy. The square boy who was ridiculed for being effeminate at school. His teachers and peers only noticed his manners, and everything else just seemed to be insignificant. While other students were being encouraged, this boy felt the time that he opened his mouth, he would be mocked at. And just to avoid attention and judgment, the boy learned not to contribute and not to add value, even if he wanted to, or even if he was capable to. What this story tells us that when we look at the LGBTQIA community in comparison with the heteronormative community, while all of them go through the same system of education and upbringing, the lines, or rather the starting lines of both the communities are starkly different. 15 years later, tired of this constant issue, the boy decides to change the equation because he's tired. He doesn't want to just constantly be noted for being queer or being, different. So he decides to start bring fresh into the avenue of art, nightlife, and culture. Glad to say that per year impacted over 80,000 people, employed the most diverse and inclusive workforce, and has a nationwide footprint, while agenda of the LGBTQIA inclusion into the mainstream. I am very humbled to say that that boy happens to be me. And, it could only happen in this process of reaching out because of the systematic pushing across and not being able to add value just because of whosoever you are, even though you knew that you're capable of adding value. Now, this process of reaching out to, this entire thing of setting up a business, doing experiences, and starting the entrepreneurial journey all sounds fantastic. We set out on doing something like this, but this process was not easy. In my process of reaching out to multiple businesses in order to hold hands and make sure that the experiences happen, where LGBTQIA folks were also included, I had to reach out to almost 70 different venues in my own city. And very shockingly, 69 of them refused on frivolous grounds, or even asking questions as basic as, what is LGTV? What is the impact of the community coming and engaging with our normal crowd? And when faced with such questions, I was only riddled, and I understood that even today, the education, the stigma, the discrimination is so out loud out there that even if a person from the community wants to set the tone right, it can be very harrowing and very discouraging. In fact, there are times that people would not even take you seriously. They would rather concentrate on your hand gestures and the way how you are dressed. If you're visibly vulnerable, people would concentrate on that rather than the value that you're trying to put on table, in spite of the fact that the thing that you're talking about or the proposal that you have can really let their businesses and your business grow hand in hand. Well, these are our regular day-to-day challenges which we keep fighting into this ecosystem as being entrepreneurs. Because and I'm not diving very deep into it due to the lack of time, but these are things that go through for the community. But having said that, when we empower someone from the community, as they are people who are experts by experience, who have understood that what it means to be pushed aside and put in a corner, they definitely do not want this to happen for their future generations. And hence, I could only come this far as a personal journey. The story that I share, I could only come this far as I had the privilege and the support, time, effort, and most importantly, the resources to take that risk, to start a journey, to make sure that, okay, I am going to set the tone right. And if that happens to any other person who's from the community, I am sure they would also want to do the same. And hence, I humbly appeal to all the entrepreneurs, in my opinion, also known as the change makers, to educate, engage, and empower with the LGBTQIA community of world by putting your money where your mouth is in order to have a more safe and inclusive future world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Vaibhav. It's always a pleasure listening to you, and also very, very educative. And I'm sure that all of us have understood what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and also really keen to be part of your journey. And I'm saying on behalf of all of us at Surge Impact and Sankalp as well. So, yes, what we will do is I would request everyone to drop their questions to Vaibhav in the chat right now. We will collect all the questions and look at them at the end of the panel discussion as well. So, what I will do is I have three guests to invite on the panel discussion. And without spending much time, I will start introducing each of them. So the format is going to be, I will be inviting one guest at a time, and they will be putting forth their points. And we'll each take 5 minutes. And in the end, we will be wrapping up. And obviously, 5 to 7 minutes, I mean. In the end, we will be wrapping it up with question answers and conclusions. So, yes, to start with, I would invite a very notable person from the west of India, and we're very honored to be knowing Sanam Gandhi and also potentially working with her as we go along. And Sanam is a transitioning trans woman and is in the process of her legal change of identity. Apart from conducting training and sensitization program on gender, sexuality, and LGBTQIA plus spectrum at corporates and many corporates, colleges, and other organizations, Sanam is a postgraduate in strategic design for businesses. Um, a course that did not go well as she suffered a lot with gender incongruence, social, economical, and mental health issues during that period of her closeted self. She is a passionate fashion stylist and a groomer. She is also a theater and performance artist. She curates new and recycled art and fashion accessories and sells them to people on the streets or at events as she strikes the conversation about the LGBTQIA plus community spectrum and strives to bring positive change for all. She is dealing with neurodivergence, OCD, and other issues that most trans persons face depending on their individual situation and circumstances. Sanam is here with us today to share a few words about the topic and especially coming from her own journey. Sanam, can you unmute yourself and stage is all yours.
Hi. I'd like to start with asking how many of you knew that one of the names of a guppy fish is also a rainbow fish. And coincidentally, I'm feeling like a guppy in a shark tank here. A little nervous. So 7 years ago, it wasn't any tank. I found myself in a parking, in a garage. Uh, I had lost my job. I was disowned by my family. I was attacked by goons who tried to rape me. And all of this because I was a trans woman. I am a trans woman. I came out then 7 years ago. I started my transition. One thought kept ticking in my mind was my family told me that we cannot accept you because society won't approve of what you are. And my journey started that way. I thought if the society is the problem and they are not allowing my family to accept me, then I need to talk to society, not understanding how I'm going to talk to 1.38 crore population of India. But then I started off. I had to simultaneously earn my livelihood. So my plan was to sell small handmade accessories, clothing items door to door outside corporates, as Raj said, and also sensitize people at the same time. So journey started around 5 years ago. I was invited by Accenture to have a session for them to sensitize. And then other corporates followed. Annie Brain, I sensitized people for Hyatt, Regency, hotels. Different NGOs I collaborated with and took sessions, put up stalls, did a lot of theater performances. And I'm happy to share that till now I have sensitized 50,000 plus people. And all of this I am doing from a mobile phone because I couldn't afford to have a laptop yet. All my money that I'm earning is going into my living, and transition is really very expensive. One opportunity I see here, when we look at the statistics, the 2011 Indian census says that there are 4.88 lakh transgender people in India. Now we are in 2022, and I don't really agree with the data, because if you look at the American data, for example, they say 0.5% of population is trans population. By that data, India should have at least up to 70 lakh transgender, if not at least 50 lakh transgenders. And that's a huge untapped pool of human resource which we should look at. The other opportunity I see is about when we talk about sustainable development goals. How about equal and socioeconomic development by not only enabling job opportunities, but also having business opportunities for people from the community. I'll quickly focus only on two or three challenges that I personally face. Since Raj mentioned I'm going through a legal change of identity, I'm working on it from 3 years. Had to go to Delhi for it. Now new laws are there on paper. On paper, they look really nice, but in practicality, they are not really helpful. So there are three aspects. One is funding, the cost of transitioning legally, the money that is required. Second, the time that is required, and the resistance from government and private bodies, wherein people don't want to support when we are doing it. There is a resistance. I had to visit bank, for example. I mean, unless I'll have a proper identity, unless I'll have my bank account, how am I going to do the business? How I'm going to pay the tax? How I'm going to do anything that for that matter? So I had to visit bank for almost 30 times to get my identity corrected. It showed two names for long. Still, there is some left. For educational departments, I visited 2 times to Deputy Director of Education, Pune. I visited university, I visited the board. It's been 12 rounds and only 50% work is done. So the amount of time that is going in, I mean, 8 days ago in Deputy Director's office, one person refused to shake hands with me. I wanted to thank him. And then I realized, oh, I'm a trans woman, and why would he shake hands with me? Because I'm a trans woman. So that's the kind of a discrimination we are having in the society. The other challenge I like to highlight is being an independent trans woman, not being a part of a, this community called cultural community of Hijra community. So when we talk about LGBTQIA+, as Vaibhav mentioned, it's either a LGTV or a little better now. Okay, people will say, Acha, it is about gays and lesbians. And then when we shake people, there is T also in that abbreviation, transgender. And the moment we say transgender, what people picturize here is the Hijra community, which is fine because it's the largest community in India of transgender people. But what independent transgender people like me? What about trans men? What about non-binary people who don't want to join a particular cultural community? So I like to conclude by saying that we exist, we do exist. And if I have a minute more, I'd like to share one more challenge that one of the most literate, considered to be one of the most literate state, their literacy rate is 96.2%. In one of the sample study, they found that 6 out of 10 trans people are school dropouts. So the harassment and bullying at the school really pushes trans people outside the education system. And if there is no education, there are no skills, if there is no mentoring, how we're going to take up not the business, but even a job. So the opportunity, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to invest in the education of trans people from this country for the sustainable socio-economic development of the south of the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanam. I know you have a lot to say. And in fact, I know thousands of people who attend to listen to you speak, and the stories you bring in from the grassroots and the force that you speak out has been always educative and inspirational at the same time. Thanks a lot again for putting your points. I do have a few points at the end while I summarize, and we will wait for the questions to come in for you as well. Thank you once again. With that, I would like to introduce our second panelist today, Patruni Chidananda Shastri, a drag performer and founder of Dragwanti. I know I'm creating a little bit of FOMO here by saying all of the action is happening in Hyderabad, but obviously you should once watch Patruni perform and you will know what I mean when I say a big FOMO that exists when you don't see him. Patruni Chidananda Shastri is an expressionist dancer, performance artist, and a tranimal drag performer. Patruni started dancing at the age of 7, and his unique style called expressionism is a new way to tell stories of awareness to society. Patruni Shastri contributes his attribute of dance and drag in many national and international avenues. Patruni's work always had interdisciplinary to create a new pedagogy of performance. Patruni performs drag in a unique interpretation of art that promotes avant-garde art, anti-beauty, and a postmodern approach to art. Sometimes with dance and other times with folk music. And in fact, Patruni, some of the performances have gone viral many times. He has also, I've seen recently, doing folk music in a metro station. They have performed in over 1,000 shows, 50 workshops, have spoken over 5 TEDx talks, many fashion walks and digital performances across all mediums. Patruni, may I invite you to please put forth your speech. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Raj, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm here in this particular dress, specifically in red, so that I don't kind of lose your attention for the next 7 minutes when I'm going and speaking. So let me start with sharing a kind of an anecdote of something which my grandfather used to say. So whenever I was a child, I was not kind of waking up early or kind of doing stuff, my grandfather used to quote a verb which says, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy and wise. Underline, makes a man healthy and wise. And this is the same quote which all of us might have seen either in our corporate offices or as an email when it comes to our Wednesday, Wisdom Wednesdays every week. Having said that, this quote is something which is most atrocious, written by Benjamin Franklin. The reason is because I doesn't associate with the quote because I'm a trans non-binary people and Mr. Benjamin is not talking about me. Secondly, within the ecosystem of India, which is working majorly with UK and US and Canada, the time zones are something which will not let an employee sleep early and wake up early. So none of them is something which is associating or kind of making me inspired from this particular quote. So coming back to the quote, our diversity and inclusion practices are as equal as that of this Benjamin Franklin quote. They are just saying, speaking, and spotting, having not doing anything, which is basically kind of coming ahead and presenting it to people. Let me point out to you what are the things which we are failing at. Firstly, our inclusion efforts are taking an easy route of pinkwashing. We are just saying, we are just showing, but not doing it. We are interested or investing in trainings, but our staff is not trained to show empathy towards people who are from the queer community or queer customers. We are investing in trainings, but it's not going ahead to the grassroots level. With all this, what we need to understand is like we are using the product development language, the waterfall approach to diversity and inclusion, whereas inclusion is something which is more of an agile. As when we go ahead and kind of recorrect our times to kind of match with our clients and customers sitting in US and UK, might that be for a daylight saving, or might that be for you to kind of be more productive? It's really important for us to change our lenses as well when we are kind of going ahead and working with diversity and inclusion. And how can we do that, if you're asking that question? So the answer is quite simple. Diversity and inclusion is more of a, it's more of a methodology than that of a framework. It's more of something which is more behavioral than that of just putting a PPT and asking them to read. So when you have to connect personally with each other, the best tool to utilize is art. So art can dive into personal spaces and provide information or provide details of how you should show empathy or how you should bring people together in a far more different way. Here are some ideas which I would like to throw where you can utilize art and business together. Use queer artists such as drag performers and drag queens to run your inclusion models. Like they will give you a real-time effort as well as performance as well as experiences because they are queer. Secondly, they become your inclusion PPTs, which can attract and give the message in a far more clearer way. Make queer artists a part of your business ecosystem and ensure that they are showcasing and calling out the policies which are there within your own system. Ensure that these policies are placed from day one of an employee's work life cycle. Like imagine a drag queen going ahead and doing a new joinees orientation or doing language training program. So that is where you give the effort, you bring a human and put it in the system and ask them to lead the inclusion language before. Thirdly, get an artist on board, try running mock modules or mock calls, act out scenarios, emphasize on practicing than that of reading about gender neutral language and pronouns. So this is something which would help them in tuning while they are going ahead and presenting in their own workspaces. Run something like a pronoun drill, just like a fire drill, where you give opportunity to change their pronouns in their own profile of your employees time and again. It's not that a person has to go through an HR and then kind of bring it back. Make it more organic, make it more I would say open for them to kind of put it whenever they kind of feel in. Finally, ensure that your gender as well as sexuality policies which are there is provided to each and everybody. Ensure that you have a queer audience in place as well, and try to educate your system with more of a behavioral change than that of just practicing or kind of telling it out in public. Ensure that it's not happening only in June month, it's happening overall the calendar, and bring people together time and again. So I hope I had my say. And one last thing is like follow queer influencers on LinkedIn because they share better quotes than that of Benjamin Franklin. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Patruni. As usual, I was trying to note down a few things and always running behind. Yes, absolutely to the point. And nobody could have said it better, Patruni, that these points, we do hear them even when we go and discuss in a bunch of corporates and with the peer entrepreneurs. But yes, points well made, and I'm looking forward to what questions we might get from the folks who understood deep enough. So yes, moving to the next speaker, we have, and again, a reminder for those who are asking questions to leave them in the chat box. We'll be collecting and answering them at the end of the panel. And with that, the final panelist we have is one of our partners, and very good partners indeed, who have taken equal risk and a lot of future vision to be carried to dive into doing more than token philanthropy and token responsibility, and dive into taking head on the challenges of inclusive development. I'll invite Dr. Meenu Bambani, VP and Head Corporate Citizenship and Guide APAC at State Street. Dr. Meenu Bambani is a CSR and D&I professional with over 2 decades of experience in human development and social policy. while listening to Dr. Meenu, you will realize how she cuts across sectors and cuts across segments of social policies and actually takes us through a journey of interrelated subjects. A fellow of the International Ford Foundation, she has worked in academia, government and nonprofit sector, and the World Bank. Currently, Meenu heads corporate citizenship and global inclusion, diversity and equity, which is called GUIDE, for State Street Corporation in APAC. Before joining State Street, Meenu spent over a decade at Emphasis, where she was instrumental in creating opportunities that provided high-profile recognition opportunities for their programs, especially around addressing systemic challenges to disability inclusion. And when I say the diversity of experience that Meenu brings in, you can only listen from Meenu's mouth on different work that have happened in last 2 decades through her leadership and initiative. Meenu, all yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Raj. I'm very humbled to be in this session. And I know I only have 5 minutes. So I will quickly come to the point. However, just one quick thing that I wanted to mention, that, when we talk of diversity, when we talk of diverse experiences, I bring in that from a disability perspective. So Raj already mentioned that. However, just for the knowledge of audience, I have the lived experience of disability, and I have experienced, and I continue to experience discrimination and exclusion on a day-to-day basis when I travel, when I step out of the house, and it's just written everywhere. So I can fully understand what people like me, or people who are disenfranchised, who do not have, who are at the margins, go through. So from a CSR perspective, we have strongly believed that CSR can be used strategically to bridge the gap that exists in the environment, in empowering and enabling the communities to access resources and opportunities. At State Street, we started by applying an equity lens to our grant making. So for example, in North America, after the Black Lives Matter, we boldly announced the 10 actions that how we are going to respond to this. And the grant making program went through a complete overhaul, and an increasing percentage grants are now invested in organizations that are BIPOC led. By BIPOC, I mean, those of you who are not aware or who may not be aware, is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So the organizations that we are funding are led by them, and they have adequate representation at leadership, staff, board, and trustees level, building on a strong foundation of serving 85% BIPOC individuals as verified by an independent audit. In India, we were conscious that we need to apply the same approach and explore partnerships that address the issue from an equity lens, especially in the area of education and workforce development for the disenfranchised groups. So Surge Impact's initiative to run an incubation program to support LGBTIQIA plus social enterprises through incubation and network support was one such program that we actively sought. Raj has already highlighted the aim and the objectives of that. However, from our perspective, this is the first time that something like this is being tried. And we feel that this will be a learning, not just for us, but for the whole social and impact sector. We have to take some step at some point and ensure that we have the patient capital to see through the impact. We understand that the matrix cannot be the same as a regular for-profit enterprises where we measure growth quarter on quarter. But in this case, what we are trying to see is, or how we will see it is, did we move the needle? Or how we are moving the needle? How are we nudging the sector to take collective action and apply social justice equity lens to any or group that has remained off the radar of CSR? We are in this journey to find some answers together. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Dr. Meenu. Yes, I don't think, Dr. Meenu, that anybody else would have said it better. The role and the lens that you wear at State Street, and especially and how so many development initiatives that you have foreseen and have conducted are interwoven and impact the community at large. Thank you so much for all of your conversations and talks by all four of you. And what I will do is there are few questions in the chat box. Let's directly address them. And unless they're pointed to one person specifically, I would start by taking them on, and please feel free to jump in after that. So the first one I can see is, what role can the private sector play in creating an enabling ecosystem for entrepreneurs from the LGBTQAI plus community to grow and scale their enterprise? I think partly what Meenu was mentioning about, and also the journey of the development from a corporate lens does answer part of this question. But I would also say private sector beyond a corporation, right? Like I had a professor in my social enterprise course. The professor used to say that at the end of the day, when you look at CSR, you also need to know the business of a business is to do business. It's not to do impact. Yet we know that an impact needs to happen because there is a community of folks. There are people around the world who are left out from the rapid growth that is propelled by the economy's growth by the corporations around the world. But I would also say that the private sector, other than the corporations, which also includes not-for-profit sectors and government also, even though they are not investing capital directly, there is a bigger role to play. More than the role, I would also say the urgency. We have to start by providing basic infrastructure in place. I think it is quite established right now in our panel as well that we have a lot of entrepreneurs waiting. I think the basic infrastructure is something we can focus on. And here I'll take a pause. Anybody from the panel also wants to address it, go for it, or we'll go to the next one. Just to make it fun, I'll do some counting. Okay, all good. Oh, thanks. That is a great way, Patroni, to show if we are good with that question. We improvise. All right. So Jaya Jain is asking, what are the challenges faced by the community towards accessing investments from financial institutions in addition to the work undertaken by Surge? Would you know of any more targeted investment initiatives and programs? So the simple answer to the second part of your question is no. We don't know anybody else targeting investments. And that is an unfortunate situation. We really wish there are 1,000 more initiatives in the sector with or without us, and we would, being a not-for-profit, be happy to share all of our data with anybody who wants to support the community through investments. Now, we know only one institution called Start Out in US. We have also reached out to them for collaborations, and they have done a good study and have supported over 100 entrepreneurs from across the United States of America who are from the community. Now, other than that, the usual challenges, let's assume the bottom of the pyramid, as C.K. Prahalad sir mentioned, exists, right? The collateral, the bankability, the lack of education as entrepreneurship is a loan journey, and all of those points that we typically hear in any other Sankalp session as well, those all exist and more. And more that we discussed by our panelists also, the discrimination, the lack of confidence, the alienating nature of businesses in B2B settings, and the trust of the consumers and customers. So these are also in addition, and that is why the focus, that's why we are having this session today, that it's not a regular incubation program. We need to do beyond. So anybody else wants to add? In fact, Vaibhav, do you want to add? Yes, Patruni, you had the hand raised. Do you want to add some more?
Yes, one more thing is, like, when we kind of look into entrepreneurs, like I will take the example of Vaibhav, because he's my friend and he will not kill me for that. So basically, like the idea of fitting in a product, fitting in a product to the heteronormative world, because people still have a lens that, it's the larger audience or the consumers are somebody who are majoritively, heteronormative, and trying to fit a queer product or something which might be, queer inclusive to the heteronormative crowd is something sometimes, a challenge as well. The reason why I wanted to take, Vaibhav's, initiative is like they curate, events which are, on the source of, or on the basis of queer people. So these are queer nightlife events which are being created in this particular city, but are still the first kind of a stigma which we get from, spaces which are taking or kind of giving us is like, it's not catering to the whole, community of heteronormative. It's just catering to a certain section of it. So it's like, there's still a kind of a effort of fitting a product to a certain kind of a, to a kind of a market, and trying to ensure that the heteronormative or the heteronormative crowd is getting mostly benefited than that of the queer crowd. So I think customizing a product or customizing an experience is something which is more required, and we have to also ensure or consider that there are queer people on the other side who are the consumer base, who are kind of taking it, or who are kind of wanting to have that particular experience.
Thanks, Patroni. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Absolutely, that perspective was missing so far, actually. Yes, Vaibhav, you also had admitted, yeah.
Yeah, so I just adding to Patroni's point, I think and I'm speaking more from a very basic perspective, apart from whatever points that the lower rung of the pyramid that you mentioned, it is also lack of data. I don't think we know the extent of the community and the need of the community that exists in the market today. There is so much, like we would know, and I was reading this statistic, this is from IPSOS survey that happened out of the US, that apparently 19% of India's population comes under the umbrella of Lgbtqia plus community. And that, mind you, is a huge population. Even if the number is here and there, it's a big number. And that is a good consumer, entrepreneur, talent, all kinds of pool for you to work and see. But having said that, we still do not see initiatives which work with the ground root, which works with the community straight up. It is always hidden under the garb, and please do not misunderstand me when I say this. It is always hidden under the garb of CSR. It is not. I mean, and from the community perspective, we don't want charity. We want equality. And I'm not trying to disrespect CSR. What I'm trying to say is that entire lens of understanding, where people have to move and understand that yes, there is value, there is the same certitude needs to be put into place for the community as it is put for the heteronormative community. Having said that, again, the disclaimer that I'm not trying to say that CSR is not important, but yes, it needs to be seen as a business lens, as Raj was also pointing out. And that, again, that's tiny bit of understanding is, I feel, is also a challenge right there, where community feels a little underconfident in really coming out and doing things. So yes.
Got it. Yeah, thank you, Vaibhav, for adding in. Yes, I think we'll just go to the next question. In fact, I'd say, Dr. Meenu, if you want to take this, it's addition to your point of connecting equity with the presence of BIPOC founders in the enterprise. How can this lens of inclusive hiring be brought in for larger corporations? It'd be great to hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah. So, larger corporations in any case are focused on inclusive hiring. There are struggles, there are challenges in whether it's disability, whether it is LGBTIQ, QIA+, whether it is veterans, whether it is any other diversity you may talk about. It boils down to a lot of policies, inclusive practices. And in my observation, working with a large corporation now, there are a lot of regulations within many countries within which you have to operate. So the challenges that I see, for example, in Asia Pacific, sometimes there are regulatory requirements where, because of regulations, you cannot allow people to self-identify because those categories are prohibited by law, not recognized by law in some of the countries. So how do you create an inclusive environment? So while at the global level, you are announcing and you are saying that we are inclusive, but you are also tied down by some of the regulatory requirements in many countries. It needs a holistic approach. So it is about working closely with the ecosystem. Unless the corporations work with the ecosystem, with the groups who have remained at the margins, who have remained disenfranchised, you are doing a kind of tokenism, and which is where I feel that having representation, having participation from all those groups in a structured way with a framework, so that you're not all over the place, but you're being conscious and collaborative in making sure that your practices are inclusive. So that's what I would like to add.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's about it. To be honest, I was thinking that's a point well made. I was wondering if, Sanam, you also have any point around that. I know we have come across together initiatives which are also trying to achieve the same. But yeah, if you do have any point on that direction.
Not to this, but actually the previous question that struck me
Sure.
about having challenges in terms of getting investments. So before I heard of Surge Impact Foundation and this program, I did try to arrange funds for myself. I'll give an example. As I was working on the laptop, it's difficult for me for 6-7 years now, and I wanted to get a laptop very badly. I tried to get a loan, but I was refused 3 times from the bank, and there is no reason given. So it's a very small thing, because if anybody can get the loan of probably 1 lakh rupees to get a laptop, if trans person is rejected 3 times without giving any proper reason, and people who are in between with whom I'm interacting, definitely they don't have any policies in place. So it's like, I mean, if someone wants to speak nicely, they'll speak nicely. Otherwise, someone doesn't want to speak nicely, they'll not speak nicely. There are no reasons given, and it's outright like rejected. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to challenges, now Surge is doing a great job. It's kind of an initiative, but then otherwise, obviously, I mean, raising funds is like depending on allies or asking people, and yeah, there is no proper source or channel to raise the funds for investment into what you're doing.
Got it. Thank you, Sanam. Thank you very much also for the nice comment, and absolutely can't be said better. I will move on to this question next, Sanam. So this Abhijit Das has asked about LGBTQ participation is currently trying to achieve what women groups have tried to achieve a long time ago. Can we start a massive talent celebration initiative rather than projection of this group as an oppressed party? So I would like to invite the panelists also, but before that, I would also say that on a lighter note, yes, there are already successes from the community of being entrepreneurs. The most valued company in the world, CEO Tim Cook has come out, and we have all seen the impact of that. And to celebrate, I would say all of us should be getting an iPhone. But I'm just saying that on a lighter note, I do think there's definitely one of the core tenets of the incubation program at Surge Impact Foundation is be able to dance, and the experience curated by Vibo. And we will be celebrating, absolutely. We are on a journey, all of us together, and we are going to celebrate not just the achievers, but also celebrate the aspirants who are joining our programs and elsewhere. Patruni, you had a point.
Yeah. So, there's something which has come, really interesting about this question. 2 points which I would like to throw. Firstly, it's an oppressed group. Yes, it's an oppressed group. We have been oppressed for, 100 years now. And till today, this has been a situation where I can't come out in my workspace, or, a lot of other people can't come out in a workspace. It looks like a very sad story, but we are tuned to Bollywood. Thank God, Bollywood has a lot of, queer stories which are crying each and every point in time. Hence, we are also kind of got into the same tune, might be habitually. Having said that, even 50 years after women, we still kind of go into a training room, and 10 or 15 guys kind of sit and only talk like, hi ladies and gentlemen, or something like, oh bro, or chairperson. Those are the words which are still being used. Like, are women getting the kind of spaces which they get? No. Then you can definitely imagine about men. And regarding the talent, yeah, we have wonderful talent. However, it's a hard time for us to kind of come back and take those positions, and start being celebrated. Having said that, what I can kind of suggest is one thing which we all can do, as persons who are investing in business, or as a corporate employee, like, ensure to change ourselves first, like to see our visions in certain way where we include people. Like, if you see the world happily, you will not see the crying stories flying anywhere. So I think that is the best way of doing it. And I just kind of agree with Sanam and other people who point out challenges. Even today, if a queer person is being hired, like for example a trans person, a hijra person who has been hired, they still have to go through a lot of background checks, which is one of the example of pointing out like what exactly is the kind of oppression which we get. And those are some of the things which we are trying to highlight at this point in time. Hopefully we have a better story. Hopefully we have more enjoyable stories tomorrow or the after. I have a really happy story, by the way. But having said that, it's changing. The perspective is definitely changing. We will definitely celebrate as and when we go forward.
Go for it, Vaibhav, quickly.
I just want to quickly add, and thank you, Patroni, for putting this out so nicely and so rightly. I think this very fact that, yes, this is the ground reality. And trust me, if the community does not tell you that this is what is wrong, I don't know what to do, right? In fact, this is why we are here. This is why the community needs to tell you right in your face that here, this is what we are going wrong. Because people come and ask us, what is even wrong? Why are you even fighting? Why is it a mutiny? And this is exactly the same very reason. Celebrating talent, yes, is important. Putting role models definitely is important. But only those are not the community. The community is by and large existing of so many people who don't even wish to even come out and tell people that this is who I am. And why should that need be required? It should be just a blanket thing. No one comes and asks a heteronormative person that, are you straight? Are you but for the larger impetus, yes, for me as an LGBTQIA member, I dream of a world where I do not have to put my sexuality in front of my work. It doesn't have to come there. And that is when it'll happen, when people automatically stop making it a big fuss, when we come to an equal and an inclusive world where we do not have these challenges that we are trying to probably highlight and seek help with, but not desperately.
Thanks, Vaibhav. That almost sort of has concluded on a very relevant note. I'll just quickly finish within a minute, just to conclude, and let the attendees also go to other sessions. We did discuss today the basics for those uninitiated on why impact investments matter in the community. We have seen the journey of Vaibhav Modi as an entrepreneur, Sanam's war over inclusion, war for inclusion among corporates and rest of the folks, Patroni to have shared about why certain traditional approaches like the waterfall approach, I love that analogy, don't really work best, and Dr. Meenu for highlighting all the initiatives and the logic behind why a CSR does what they do in supporting the community. A quick call to action that just to highlight that entrepreneurs and successful leaders in the corporate have always existed from the community. It is not new. It's the time for the investors and the ESG and impact investors to take note and unlock this wealth from the creators, wealth in all angles, impact as well. Now, there's an urgent need definitely to rework on the D&I initiatives in the investor groups as well as the corporates. Now, we also learned how a corporate can get involved. Now, lastly, I would say if there is one thing you want to take back from this this panel, definitely start by investing in the community. Help us and many other folks to put together more research and data. Let us run more programs for the community. I'm sure there are folks who can do more diverse and better programs as well. Connect us to more people in the community that you know of, and we are looking for volunteers, CSRs, investors, and more entrepreneurs from the community. On that note, I would like to say my goodbyes, and also very quickly say that it is only one Tim Cook that we have highlighted in this session. There are a million others waiting to be highlighted, and join us to discover all of them. So thank you so much for all the panelists, everybody who joined us today, and back to the Sankalp team. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Raj, Patruni, Vaibhav, Sanam, and Meenu. Those were just some incredible insights, and it's a very, very rich discussion. Thank you. Thank you all.